It's time for Blu-Ray editions. So, starting us off is Speed. Speed was directed by the cinematographer for Die Hard, which is kind of cool. But, Speed, it's essentially just about a cop who is trying to keep a bus going 50 miles per hour because if it slows down, it will blow up. And that's the whole plot. Keanu Reeves is that cop, and he's on the bus with Sandra Bullock driving it, and they're just trying to make sure the bus doesn't explode. And that's the whole movie for 2 hours. It's really good. I did not expect to love Speed so much. It's really well directed. There's like all these little bits of dialogue that you're like, oh, okay, that was a pretty good piece of banter. Like, you think some pieces of dialogue are just like meaningless throwaway lines, and then they ultimately serve a higher purpose to the story. Like, there's this scene where Keanu Reeves is just talking to this one other guy. I don't remember the actor who played him, but Keanu Reeves is talking to his partner, and then he asks, "Why did I take this job?" And then his partner goes, "Relax, in a couple more years, you'll get a nice fat pension and a cheap gold watch." And then that piece of dialogue is actually important later to the story. But yeah, that's what I like so much about Speed. It takes meaningless dialogue and then makes it have a purpose to the story. So yeah, Speed is just a great movie. And also, one thing I want to add, I believe this is Sandra Bullock's first movie, or at least one of her first movies. I don't really know if that's true. But what I do know is that I've seen 4 of Sandra Bullock's movies. I've seen Speed, I've seen The Proposal, Gravity, and Minions. And despite the fact I am not the biggest fan of Sandra Bullock, like I haven't studied her filmography greatly, I still tell people she's my favorite actress. I don't know why. I just think like, oh, she's a popular actress. I'll just say Sandra Bullock and no questions asked. Because I don't really know much of her movies. I guess I could say Scarlett Johansson, because she's in a lot of movies that I like. Like, a surprising amount of my favorite movies have Scarlett Johansson in it. But I don't know why, but I always tell people Sandra Bullock is my favorite actress. So if I tell you Sandra Bullock is my favorite actress, like if we ever meet in person and you're like, "Who's your favorite actress?" "Sandra Bullock," you're gonna know I'm lying, and I'm sorry for that. Next up is The Paper Tigers. Really underrated martial arts movie. My uncle recommended it to me, and now I recommend it to you. Paper Tigers is a really fun movie. It's like a martial arts movie about these 3 guys who used to be really good at kung fu, and then all of a sudden they just stopped because they were getting too old for it. And now they're at a point where, like, any sudden movement will just, like, pretty much immobilize them for the rest of the hour. So, they're on this quest to try and find who murdered their Shifu, their master. And the movie overall is actually incredibly funny. This is a really funny movie with really well-directed martial arts scenes. There's one character I like in this movie. He's like this white guy. And, like, but for some reason, he is, like, an aficionado of martial arts. He'll regularly, like, refer to himself as Chinese. Like, in one line, he literally says, "We Chinese have a saying." And so he's, like, the most cultural appropriation character ever. And I don't know, he's just a funny character. The whole movie's really funny. I highly recommend checking out Paper Tigers. It's actually on Netflix right now, so if you can, please, 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 please go to see The Paper Tigers. You won't regret it. It's really funny. Next up is The Jerk. Didn't see it, not gonna talk about it. It was for $5, and I thought, hey, that's a good deal, bought it, and I can't actually watch it because it's rated R. Meet the Parents. I've never cringed harder at a movie than Meet the Parents. There's this one scene where, well, no, actually, let me tell you what the movie is about first. The movie is about Ben Stiller is like a male nurse named Greg Focker. F-O-C-K-E-R. I'm not swearing, I don't curse. But so, Greg Focker wants to propose to his girlfriend, but he wants to get his girlfriend's father's permission first. But then he finds out, like, his soon-to-be father-in-law, is just how I'll say it, is Robert De Niro playing, like, a ex-CIA agent, and he's, like, really strict, really intimidating, really scary. And so this whole movie, you see these two butting heads and, like, delivering some dialogue that just, it's so, it's cringy. It's good, but it's so embarrassing for Ben Stiller's character. Like, one funny piece of dialogue that I was gonna tell you about earlier was, Ben Stiller's character is, he's talking about milking animals because he's lying and saying, "Oh, I used to live on a farm." He's lying about that. So then somebody asks, "Oh, like what animals have you milked?" And Ben Stiller's character goes, "Well, you can really milk anything with nipples." And then so Robert De Niro looks him straight in the eye and goes, "Okay, Greg, I have nipples. You think you can milk me?"
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
Oh, yeah, you can milk anything with nipples.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Next up is the Mummy trilogy. Not gonna watch this until Halloween because it seems appropriate to watch it at Halloween. When you buy horror movies, like in August or September, you gotta wait until maybe October-ish, then you can watch it. That's what I'm doing, and I have another movie that I'm gonna do the same for later in this list. So yeah, the Mummy trilogy, haven't seen it, might see it someday. Next up is Reservoir Dogs. Now, this whole movie takes place in one location. It's about a bunch of criminals who just got done with a jewel heist that went really wrong. And so they're at their rendezvous point, and they're just waiting for people to trickle in. And they also believe that there's some sort of mole within them, that there's a police informant working with them. And so everyone in the movie is spending the whole film trying to find out who this informant is. And also, Reservoir Dogs, it's Tarantino's first movie. Quentin Tarantino, fantastic director. This was the first movie that I watched by him. And in this movie is a scene where this one guy is just torturing a guy to the tune of Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel. And it's one of my favorite Tarantino scenes. Like, it's probably my second. My favorite is the ending of Django Unchained. That's just a really cool scene. But I don't know, there's so much I like about Reservoir Dogs. I'm not going to talk too much about it anymore, because I might review it. I don't know, I might review it. So next up is Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. Now, Shanghai Noon is alright. It's the main reason I wanted to see it was, one, I wanted to see a martial arts movie that takes place in the West, and two, Jackie Chan's cool. And really, that's all it is. It's a gimmick. The gimmick is, oh wow, Western meets martial arts, and that's it. And so, really, it doesn't do anything about that gimmick. You don't have any impressive martial arts fights, because all the fights in this movie are ruined by 24 cuts within a second. With every shot, for some reason, if Jackie Chan, kicks someone, you have one cut of Jackie Chan, one cut of the kick in the air, one cut of the kick hitting the guy's face, and then a final cut of the guy falling to the ground, and that takes place over, 4 seconds. And so, Shanghai Noon, not really my favorite, and Shanghai Nights I probably will never watch. Because, why you ask? There are no such thing as good comedy sequels. There are barely any good comedy sequels. The only one I can think of that I actually liked was the third Bill and Ted movie. That was actually pretty good. But, there aren't that many good comedy sequels, and I really doubt Shanghai Nights is gonna be any better. And for that reason, I will never watch it. Next up is Tenet. I wish I could tell you what this movie is about, but I myself have no idea what Tenet is about. It's about something. That's what I know, and that's all I can tell you. Because it's directed by Christopher Nolan, and it was made in 2020, I believe, 2021, I don't know. Not important, but Yeah, ever since 2012, Christopher Nolan decided, you know what? I like it when people have no idea what anyone is saying, and he's been doing that ever since. Because in 2012, Christopher Nolan made The Dark Knight, where the main villain of the movie was Bane. Now, Bane has thick breathing apparatus across his face, and therefore you can't understand a word he's saying. And so, yeah, the whole movie, all you hear from Bane in The Dark Knight is, "Then you have my permission to die." Except imagine that more muffled. Like, imagine that distorted as well. And then he basically took that to a max in Tenet, where he decided no one deserves to know what anyone is saying. Because what happens is either you have somebody with thick breathing apparatus across their face, or during important expositionary scenes, he has music louder than the movie. And I don't really think that's a smart idea. Granted, Christopher Nolan is a genius in some way, I guess, but I am not a big fan of Tenet. I think it is comparatively Christopher Nolan's worst movie. The operative word there being comparatively. I still like this movie, but I am not the biggest fan of it. I think it's kinda boring. It's like 2.5 hours, and it's just talking most of it. Granted, the fight scenes are impressive because you have time moving forward and backwards at the same time, which is also how most of the plot works. Most of the plot is moving forward and backwards at the same time. And so, exactly like Memento, like remember Memento? This movie's kind of like Memento, how the movie actually makes more sense when you get to the end, and then like you start to wonder, did it really, or did it make more sense at the beginning? Because then you rewatch it and it makes more sense towards the beginning and becomes more nonsensical as you go along. And the difference is, Memento's awesome and one of Nolan's best movies. Tenet is weird and confusing, convoluted, and hard to get through. Yeah, I just got this because I wanted to get every Nolan movie. Like, I want to collect all of them. And that's the only reason I own Tenet. Next up is Ip Man 4. This is a pretty entertaining movie. Good finale to the Ip Man series. Now, Ip Man was the teacher for Bruce Lee. And so in Ip Man 4, Ip Man travels to America. And so the whole Ip Man franchise is focusing on Ip Man's life before teaching Bruce Lee. And then Ip Man 4, he actually like interacts with Bruce Lee. Ip Man 4 is pretty good. I think it's one of the better Ip Man movies. Like, so I'm actually a fan of these movies. I'm not really sure if anyone knows what I'm talking about because, to some people, Ip Man is really well known, and then you have a bunch of others who it's pretty unknown to, so I'm not really sure who I'm talking to at this moment. But out of all the Ip Man movies, you got the first one, which is about, Ip Man fighting off Japanese occupation. The second one, he enters a boxing match, and essentially the whole movie is just Rocky 4, where he fights this man who killed his friend in a boxing match. And yeah, so it's exactly like Rocky 4, except it's not 25% training montages. And then Ip Man 2 is pretty good. It's my favorite Ip Man movie. The third one, I think his wife is dying of cancer or something, or maybe he's fighting off a gang, I don't really know. And Ip Man 4, he travels to America, and fights off racists. Yeah, that's the second one as well. In most of the movies, he fights off racists at one point or another, but it's most prominent in Ip Man 4 that he's fighting racists. But out of all the Ip Man movies, I like Ip Man 2 the best because it has this fight on a table where these two guys are fighting with martial arts, and they're trying to stay on the table, and it's a really good fight scene. It's by far probably my favorite fight scene ever. Then Ip Man number 1 is my second favorite. Ip Man 4 is like a solid third place. It's good. And then Ip Man 4 is not that good. Or Ip Man 3 is not that great. But I think you should check these movies out if you're a fan of martial arts or you want to see martial arts movies. Hey guys, this is Editing Lorenzo. I think I'm gonna have to end this video here because it's turning out to be way longer than I expected. Sorry if this seems kind of abrupt of an ending to you, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload part 2 either later today or tomorrow, and that's gonna be the rest of August 2021 Blu-ray editions. But, yeah, so sorry again if this seems kind of abrupt to you, because I didn't expect this to be as long of a video as it ended up being. But, since this is what I'm doing, how about before you leave, you tell me a movie that you feel didn't need to be split into 2 parts, but did anyways. For me, it's probably The Hunger Games, The Mockingjay Part 1 and 2, because realistically, this movie could have been one, 2.5 hour long movie, and they split it into 4 hours worth of 2 movies. So after you tell me about that, you can head on out. Stay safe and watch good movies. Bye!